Welcome to the Caddo Convos, the podcast that explores the vibrant community of businesses thriving in Caddo Office Reimagined. We're here to shine a light on the incredible entrepreneurs and professionals who make the most of our private offices, co-working spaces, and day office rentals in the Dallas-Fort Worth suburbs. Join us as we share their stories, celebrate their successes, and dive into the benefits of working in a space that's close to home but offers so much more than working from home. Let's get started with today's conversation. Today, I'm joined by Mark Noble from the Noble Force. Mark, real quick, just talk to me about your business.
It's a business consulting enterprise rooted in neuroscience. I've always had a dream of having a comprehensive set of solutions for businesses and for individuals in those businesses to thrive.
How do you solve your customers' problems?
I do it with frameworks. I kind of came at this business backwards. If I were a banker and been a banker forever, I would roll out of the banking business and maybe I would wanted to become a coach and teach people how to be a great banker or underwriter or lender. And they have to find a set of frameworks to use or a system to use or go get certified in the system. And I rolled out of my former position as head of a learning university at a large company and ended up with tons of frameworks that were agnostic to any kind of industry. So I kind of come at it backwards. So I'm always going at it with a framework approach for how to improve whatever it is you need to improve. One example is Market Force, which is a neuroscience-based business execution system that gives people in a business a common language and a common approach. It introduces the idea that understanding someone else and understanding at their core and actually having language to reduce the friction that's in their life and in their daily work is of value as you work together within this changing world.
Who is your ideal customer?
A company with between 10 people and probably 1,000 be probably the maximum. I can train 25 people at a time in Market Force and have trained IT departments and that sort of thing. But it really depends on what's going wrong with that company. And obviously I'm limited in the number of one-off meetings that I can hold. So normally my best client is working with executive teams and then working with the different departments after I work with the executive team and the leadership.
I understand you have custom built programs.
Correct.
Tell me about those and how you develop them.
One of them was handed me as a total gift while I was head of the learning university for a large international company back in the early 2000s. Everything wasn't available on the internet, but we were able to choose the consultants we used, and one of them was the fellow that owned Market Force. Another one is a fellow by the name of Darren Sherlaw from London, who's a world-class mathematics genius. And back then, you couldn't go online and train yourself in all these things. If you were building a learning university, the first thing you did was you were building playbooks. You're building manuals on how you do things, how you do certain things. And so because we got to choose the advisors we wanted, the only way they could actually sell their systems and their procedures for helping people understand how to thrive in business, the only way they could sell it was to give you an experience of it. And so I was gifted that experience by being head of the learning university and watching them train in our regional sales programs and regional conventions and that sort of thing. I've got a full day communication workshop that I do for companies. And probably the most important thing they end up with a framework for internal conversation that ends up building accountability. They end up with a framework for how to do sales conversations or external conversations with their either they're selling or they're talking to the existing client, ways to effectively handle those types of conversations and stay curious instead of being just showing up and throwing up about how great they are. And so, but the implementation piece is, at the end of the day, somebody needs to own the opportunity to have a team that's then a committee that I support them, and then they go keep that language alive and continue to use it. So that's the implementation is the most important thing. You can learn stuff all day long and not have a way to really implement it. And many times, and that's what I do find in motivational talk sometimes is I'm not a bad public speaker, but I've never really had a motivation to be a motivational speaker. I know there's good money in it, but I've always just really focused on how to help people thrive. That's where I get my really excitement comes to me, is when somebody makes changes and then they are a completely different employee or a different leader than they were before.
Talk to me about business dysfunctions and give me some examples of what you've seen out there.
Well, the pressure we're under today and the constant change that's happening and how rapidly it's happening, it's too much for almost everyone. And so there's this massive tendency. The experts have always called it fight or flight, but when there's a much higher incident of people deploying survival strategies, which is a life and death. Our brains are primarily wired to keep us alive. The second thing it's supposed to do, some people say thrive, but I believe the second thing your brain is trained to do or is supposed to do is to not burn energy. So it's trying to put things in its subconscious as fast as it can. And so it gets bored. And of course, everybody's distracted these days, it seems. But the dysfunctions in business, what happens when those show up is somebody is out there that's a forward thinker that's dictating to everyone. Somebody that's a moment to moment thinker is not following through properly. That they have a primary concern for freedom and having structure about how they go about selling or whatever they do feels very restricting. And so they tend to migrate, which is a survival strategy. So you've got dictate, migrate. You've got people who want to show you the massive amount of work they do. They're 90-day thinkers. They want to know how we get from here to there. And those folks tend to be so focused on quantity and making sure everybody understands how hard they work that they tend not to be very prioritized. They tend to say, I have too much I have to do. The minute you hear somebody saying, I have too much I have to do, you might think that that's a particular style that we want to help them understand how to get prioritized. And then you have those that think in the past, and there's an infinite amount of information in the past to research in order to come up with recommendations and that sort of thing. And so they tend to take longer to get anything done. You see a lot more analysis paralysis in that. And one of the reasons I'm blessed is there's a lot of disruption out there, but everything I do is based on that neuroscience piece. And I don't, to my knowledge, the human being, other than our behaviors, the basic human being is not being modified
right.
in terms of how it operates.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will always be triggered if we misinterpret the pressure at work, or my wife doesn't love me anymore, or the tree fell on my house, or we don't have electricity, and that you end up deploying a survival strategy that is not a way to be prosperous at work.
I know a client recently gave you a positive review. Tell us about that.
I was actually asking him about the struggle that I've had branding myself due to the comprehensive set of solutions that I try and create for people. And I said, tell me what I do. And he said, you give me an unfair advantage. I have the ability to step back and talk to somebody in a specific way because I know what's triggering them. If I can discipline myself to pause first and not react, you've given me all the scripts around how to talk to that individual, to talk them off the ledge, so to speak.
Yeah. And you've written some white papers for smaller companies.
Mostly targeted for companies who might not have dedicated human resources professionals. I've run into more and more very significant companies that do very significant revenue and operate in very significant number of markets that HR is handled through their finance side, their CFO. And so knowing and understanding how to attract and retain the best people, or at least having a strategy, would naturally come if you had HR, dedicated HR, because that's what they would want to focus on. They would get tired of the health benefits and all of that. They'd want to go to, how do we build a culture? And so I developed a white paper that's on my website, basically, that says it's free of charge, and it's how to attract and retain the best people. And it's 6 components that companies that are really good and leaders that know what they do really, really well, but they don't know how to do it in a way that attracts and retains the best people. One of the things that and this goes to one of the processes, I always check with the company and see what are your values and principles. I ask them to quote them for me. Most companies, even CEOs, we have those. We have those, and I've already gone on their website and they've got 12, and he or she can name 3. And if the CEO can name 3, then how can the people live within, how can they have those guardrails? And so I'm saying that because once you have principles and values that are developed collaboratively in a collaborative process, which I run those types of programs, if they're developed collaboratively, then everyone, there are things that we comply with. This is who we are. Over time, this is who we are. And when you're interviewing for a job, you want to set high standards, someone for a job. Instead of begging them to come to work for you, you want to say, are you up for this?
Are you up for this?
Like in our podcast world, the types of podcasts we run, we have very high standards. Are you up for this? Right? That gives people a challenge. And I think that's much more becoming hard to get a job there is what I want my employers to be so they can be selective. And then once they get there, you want to make sure all the stickiness is there, that the visions are typically not sticky. A vision of the future is not sticky. And so teaching people how to some people, I think it's Patrick Lencioni calls the CEO the chief reminding officer. So just speak it over and over and over and over.
So you had mentioned values. Let's talk about your values and your vision.
My vision is to have a company that helps individuals and their leaders build a confident path forward for the company and for the people, to give them something that they can focus on in a very distracted world. My core values are, I was very fortunate to have a great coach that took me through that process about 20 years ago. And my core values are care, respect, and fun. Care should show up every day if you deal with me as deep listening. I should be listening for what's behind exactly what was said. Is there something behind that? Respect would mean honoring the opinion of others and not and because obviously it's become a very divisive world. But if it makes sense, regardless of how much I disagree with what they say, that it probably makes sense for them based on their past, how they got there. And then fun is developing lightness, building lightness, lessen the pressure. My mission statement, I actually developed it because I read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And part of that program was he gives you a framework for how to do it, but he challenges you. You need to journal and empty your brain every single day in order for you to develop the right kind of mission statement. So my mission is to execute the plan God has for my life, staying close to him at all times so that I can detect his will for me, to build a loving family where everyone enjoys and respects each other, to be a constant learner, a passionate leader, and a worthy friend, and to enrich all that know me and equip them to be the best they can be. So that's my mission statement. And if I fail to do those things for you, then fire me. I have failed. So I want to help other people develop their own core value. I don't normally take people through a mission statement exercise, but I do take them through their own core values and understand what's their core purpose in life. What could you take them through a exercise of thinking differently than they normally think on a day-to-day basis?
In a conversation before the show started, we talked about one phrase, and it started with confidence. What you provide your customers with confidence in what situation?
Well, it's a confident path forward. I've got probably, 200 alumni over the last 12 years. And I just started, obviously, when you don't know something, you can't figure something out. You start asking questions, or maybe it takes, I'm dumber than most people. So it takes me a while. So I decided I was just going to start asking. So I called them up and said, tell me what I do. Tell me what I did. And so I kept hearing the word path. You've given me a path. You help us decide on a path. And what seems to be lacking in the world is, with so much distraction and so much rapid change, it's very disorienting. It's very discouraging, and it's disoriented. So I added the confidence piece because I use frameworks that are known frameworks and from experts. And so I give companies and I give people a confident path forward that they develop themselves based on those frameworks, so they don't ever feel like they're put on them. They've chosen based on an understanding of what would make them deal with less pressure on a day-to-day basis, and to be able to do a life that has not just success at work, but in all aspects, my health, my wellness, my family, my spiritual, my mental, all of those things. And to sit there and work with somebody in a group and then follow up with each one of them just to say, how can I help you grab a handle onto this and use it the way you want to use it, or take the first step with it. And last week I met with a guy and he goes, well, Mark, I was just following up. He said, 6 months ago, I was laying in bed with a 9mm revolver stuck in my mouth. And so you just realize what people are dealing with I would have never guessed that this individual was distraught about things. And so you begin to you end up with a real empathy for everybody's dealing with stuff. Everybody.
You've been at this for some time. You've seen a lot of change. Talk to me about what you're seeing changing now in the marketplace.
It starts, I think, with an empathy that people are not sure what to do. They're in every way, and company leaders know what they do, and they love to spend time in what, but they really don't know how to work on the business. So all of my approach is, how can I help them work on the business? And so they have more and more competition, so they go harder and harder at the what. And I want them to understand the why and the how, and never violate the why. But gosh, the change, the very model I use for building an individual or a company's business plan going forward, I just call it the revenue model, but it's being clear about what your target market is, and then asking those people, which very few people are willing to do this, what do you hate about what we do, but put up with it because it's industry standard, because that's what you'll get anywhere. And they will give you a set of, whether you're an accountant or an engineer, or they will give you all these ideas that this is what I hate about dealing with your industry. And then you want to develop a product, and that for your own business that is a solution to that. And it becomes your offer. It becomes your offer. It becomes what you are willing to do, what you're willing to go on a line. So you won't experience that with our company like you experience it with 5 or 6 of our competitors.
Talk to me about your ideal customer and how you solve their problem.
The ideal customer does have things that they definitely need to solve, and they need to feel like they might be a part of the problem or a majority of the problem.
Interesting.
I don't work with companies who with the leader of a company who says, I want you to go fix my people. I've gotten a lot of that. And I've had some really nice fee checks that I've cashed where they just wanted to be in front of the room, hearing about the dysfunctions so they could point to people in the room and hammer them a different way.
Wow.
I don't do that. I don't do that anymore. So they have to be willing to be coached themselves. That's the primary thing. But there's always, with every company, everything is so jumbled up about the different things I see when I walk into a company. I have probably 75 different frameworks I use, but there's got to be some type of bespoke design for that company versus this company, because I don't want to waste their time giving them something because it's a standard product of mine. That's not pertinent. Right. What I want to know is what's hurting them right now, and what's the first thing we need to solve. And usually that is something related to principles and values. That comes up more often than anything else.
How do customers find you now?
They've only been finding me through referral. That's through all of my existing clients who see something going wrong for someone else and say, well, if that's what you're experiencing, you need to call Mark Noble.
Thank you for joining us today on the Caddo Convos podcast. A huge shout out to our incredible network of members for making our community vibrant and supportive. If you're looking to boost your productivity and reduce the isolation of working from home, consider joining us at Caddo Office Reimagined. Our spaces are designed to meet your evolving needs, support remote work, and foster a sense of community that's hard to find at home. Whether you're a startup aiming for growth, a freelancer seeking a professional setting, or a company looking to optimize resources, Caddo offers a perfect blend of flexibility and innovation. By joining us, you'll be a part of a dynamic business ecosystem that helps you thrive. For more information, visit caddooffices.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Caddo Convos.